Welcome, everybody.
We're live.
Great.
Okay, here we go. Perfect. The introductions never get smoother, I guess. Welcome, everyone, to the Elixir Kitchen. We have an exciting class today. Let's go. Let's do this.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Steph. I'm the registered dietitian. And in today's class, we're going to be talking about taste changes. So taste changes is a common side effect from cancer that many people might experience, not everybody. And there's a variety of different reasons that this might occur. So for example, it might be from cancer itself. It might be from treatment. Perhaps it's not taking care of your mouth before cancer. It can be, from poor diet, even medications. When you're dehydrated, you can be experiencing taste changes, smoking, alcohol, drug use, and even sometimes with nausea and vomiting. Okay, and so obviously if someone is experiencing taste changes, they might not be getting the nutrition and foods that we need. So in today's class, we will go through different changes that someone might experience. So for example, sometimes people have a bland taste, so no taste at all. So this makes obviously eating quite difficult. So does it if you have a metallic taste or a sweet taste or a salty taste. Sometimes there's mouth sores. Okay, so in today's class, we'll discuss 3 different recipes that will really provide ways to manage bland taste, metallic taste, and you're experiencing a bitter taste. Okay, we obviously can't get to all of them, but we do have plenty of resources on our website. There's a great video that we offer as well that really goes into all the different ways to manage taste changes. So without further ado, let's start with the first recipe where we'll be talking about what to do if you're experiencing a bland taste.
Yes. Okay. So what we're making is very, very simple white bean soup. I think this is a great dish to sort of experiment with, and I think that's the key thing here, right, Steph? Is it's not one ingredient that's going to work, right? You have to experiment. You have to try several different ingredients and see what might work for you. In the case
Absolutely.
with blend, what we want to try to do is really boost the flavor. And the best way to do that is to use ingredients that are high in one's particular taste. It's one of our favorites. I know it's my favorite, which is umami. If you've tuned in before, you know that we love talking about umami. And umami is one of the 5 tastes. So we have sweet, sour, bitter, salty, and umami. And umami represents that sort of savoriness, that sort of richness that's in foods. And with certain ingredients that are high in umami, you can really, really, really boost the flavor of your meals. And sometimes that might help with that bland taste. Right, Steph?
Absolutely. And yeah, just to reiterate that point, it can be really frustrating, right? You're used to having certain tastes and your favorite foods, and favorite foods might not taste the way that they usually taste. And again, it can be frustrating. The good news is that sometimes it does come back, not always. So it's really important to be patient and to continuously experiment with different foods. So during treatment, when you're experiencing taste changes, that could be quite struggling. And then after treatment ends, that's when you kind of have a period where it slowly starts or can slowly start to come back. So patience is key and continuously experimenting. So if something was, you were off put at one point, give it 2 or 3 weeks and then try to have it again to try to slowly introduce that back into your diet to see whether that makes a difference.
Okay, so before we get started with the recipe, I do want to highlight a few ingredients here that can really provide a big boost of flavor, that are really high in umami, things that you might already have in your pantry, or things that you can probably easily find as well. Okay, so umami is usually found in ingredients that are high in glutamate, naturally in glutamate, okay? And you can find ingredients that are high in glutamate in things like fermented products. So this is miso paste, right? This is a red miso paste, which is a fermented soybean, essentially. And this is going to be really, really high in glutamate and packed with that umami flavor. Then you have things like dried mushrooms, right? Dried mushrooms as well. Regular mushrooms are high in glutamate, lots of umami. Then the dried versions, even more so. And then things like fermented sauerkraut, cabbages, kimchi, and then even sauces that have fish in it. So you might not even realize, but Worcestershire sauce here, one of my favorite words, a big component of this sauce is anchovies. And anchovies is high in umami, okay? So these ingredients are great ones to experiment with in your recipes. You can add them to soup, sauces, stir fries, roasted veggies, and they might help to really boost the flavor, okay? For today, we're going to be using miso paste, and to get started, we're going to be cooking some beans, okay? It's a white bean soup. So we're using dried beans. I want to show you how to use dried beans. By all means, use canned beans, rinse them, drain them, and they're already cooked, so this is going to be a lot quicker. You can skip ahead and ignore this step. But if you want to know how to use dried beans, because they're a great ingredient to use, long shelf life, then pretty simple. We're taking these are white navy beans. You can use any beans, obviously, and soak them overnight. And you can put that in the fridge, but soak them overnight. So about a cup of dried beans in some nice clean cold water. And then drain it, okay? So right before you cook it, you're going to drain it and rinse it. You don't want to use this cooking water, okay? Or you don't want to use this soaking water in the dish. So we're going to drain it. Then we're going to add it to our pot. And we'll switch over to our pan cam. So we add it to our pot. And let that simmer, bring it to a boil, and let those beans simmer until they're tender. So every bean is a little bit different. For these beans, it was about 2 hours, maybe a little bit less until they were nice and tender. And at that point, so we can actually add even a bay leaf. You can add a bay leaf ahead of time. You can put that in there, let that cook. But that's it. Don't add any salt, because the salt can actually toughen the skins of the beans. So that's all we want to do is water and beans and let that cook. And you have this beautiful sort of cooking liquid that comes out of it that is already going to be flavorful, a little bit on the starchier side, so you're going to have almost like this viscosity, this nice texture, this nice body to the soup, which is delicious. And then from there, we can do a whole bunch of things, right? So we're going to add our miso paste, and that's going to provide a big boost of flavor, okay? So we're going to add about a tablespoon. Now I'm using red miso paste. This is one version of miso paste. You might more commonly see white miso paste, which you can also use. White miso paste is a little milder in flavor. It's been fermented for less time. The darker miso paste, like the red, you can even get darker than this, just longer fermentation, and you're going to get a lot more flavor out of it as well. So you can find the darker ones, give it a shot, see how it works. But that's pretty much it. As it's simmering, I'm just going to stir it in. We're going to add this in at this point, right at the end. Stir it right through. And then you can adjust season to taste from here. This, at its simplest, is all I'm doing. It's just beans and the miso. You can obviously add other veggies. You can add some frozen spinach, or you can, throw in some chopped carrots or whatever you want. But at its simplest, that's all it is. Really, really simple, big flavor. Okay?
Yeah. And this is super great, right? So, especially because when you're experiencing taste changes, you might not feel like eating, or might not be eating enough. Okay, so adding this boost of flavor is something that's really helpful. And again, when you're working with a soup, right, it's really soothing and nice. and adding in that protein will really make every bite count. Okay, so that's kind of the main, we want to do. Oftentimes we like vegetable soups, which are great, but they don't really have the calories and the protein that, you need to have energy to, recover and heal. So adding in protein wherever you can is a great idea. So white beans, lentils, chickpeas, tofu, these are some really good plant-based options. Now, what I do want to say here is sometimes people experience sore mouth or even a dry mouth. And in both cases, this soup is a great option. Okay, so if you have a sore mouth, you'd want to, cook your foods until they're soft. Mashing, blending, or chopping, and using like something like a soup to soften those foods, and not to have anything that's spicy or acidic. Okay, so things like citrus, pickles, or tomatoes is something you want to stay away from if you're experiencing a sore mouth. Okay, so this soup is actually a great option. And again, if you're experiencing a sore mouth, you want to really avoid foods that are rough, that are dry, that have sharp edges. Okay, so this is a great option. And then for the alternative of having a dry mouth, right, you want to carry some sort of liquid with you at all times. Okay, so a soup, great option. You could help wash down other foods with the soup, and you could also have extra olive oil or broth to create that extra kind of moisture from that. So those are some things that additionally could happen regarding like sore mouth or dry mouth. But this specific recipe is really geared towards those who have a bland taste and using that umami flavor to boost the flavor in order to make every bite count. I think Jared has another kind of fun thing to add to this soup.
Absolutely, yeah. So, like I said, that soup is delicious as is. And what's that? 2 ingredients: white beans, okay, 3, water, and a little bit of miso paste. You know what I mean? That is simplest. I'm going to show you something else to add to it. Just because that recipe is so easy, I'm tacking on another recipe here. And we're going to make a really quick pesto to serve with the soup. Again, with the intention of adding more flavor, boosting flavor, right? So we're going to be using actually frozen peas. This is a frozen pea pesto, really, really easy, simple. Again, utilizing an ingredient that you might already have in the freezer, right? So for this, we're going to be using about, this is a little over half a cup here of frozen peas. You can let them just defrost, sit out like 5 minutes, or if you want to blanch them in boiling water, you can do that as well, or even you can microwave them for a few seconds. I don't want to cook them too much, right? I just want to just lightly soften them so it's easier to blend. Okay, I'm going to add that to a little blender here or food processor, whatever you have. You can even do this in a mortar and pestle if you're going old school. And then if I have any herbs, beautiful. That's going to add more flavor as well, right? Not necessary, and they can even be dried herbs. But if you have mint or basil, I'm adding a little bit of fresh basil here. Whatever you have, that's going to add some more flavor. And now for this, I'm going to be adding lemon juice. Now, like Steph mentioned, if something acidic is going to be aggressive or bothersome for you, then don't use the juice, but use the zest. The zest of the lemon is going to have a lot of that lemony, oily, punchy flavor that you can add into your pesto without the acidity. Okay, so it depends on what works for you. If you're okay with the acidic lemon juice, we're going to add it here. Otherwise, again, just use the zest. All right, and I'm just using about half a lemon here, and I would use for zest. I would use. It depends on what you like. Probably like a teaspoon. A little bit goes a long way because it has a lot of those lemon oils in it. Okay, and I'm going to add just a little pinch of salt we're making this really, really simple. So I'm not adding any nuts or any garlic, which you can, but I'm just keeping this on the simpler side. And then one last ingredient, again, going back to the discussion about umami. One of the kings of umami is Parmesan cheese, or any aged cheese really is going to have this really, really big punch of that glutamate. It's going to go a long way to actually enhancing the flavors in your recipe or in your dish, whatever you're making. So I'm going to actually just cut up some small pieces. You can grate it in, but I'm going to let the blender do the work here. So I'm just going to cut a few chunks, put them in there. Beautiful. And then just to make everything come together, just a couple tablespoons of olive oil. I don't want this to be super soft or wet. I want it to have some actual texture and some bite to it. All right, and then we're gonna just throw this in the blender and just give it a quick pulse. Okay, beautiful. So you can check it. If you need a little bit more liquid, you can add a little bit more. I want it to have a little bit of texture to it. So I don't know if you can see that here. We have this really beautiful, vibrant.
Like a paste.
Yeah, exactly. But you can still see a little bit of the peas in there. It's not super smooth. It has some texture. That's exactly what you want. This is delicious as a topper for soup, which was what we're using it for. But you can add this on top of fish. You can make a little pasta and use this. A little bit, again, goes a long way. We're adding a lot of flavor. And this is a really nice condiment that you can freeze. So what I would do at this point is put it into a freezer bag, flat, or you can even put it into some parchment, roll it into like a little cylinder, and then pop it in the freezer. And then you just take a little piece as you need. So I did that in advance. I'm going to show you what this looks like.
I guess you could also put it into like cubes, right? Like ice cubes?
Yeah, ice cube. Yeah, ice cube tray. Just remember that which is the ice for drinking and which is the garlicky pesto. You want to mix that up. So this one here, I just rolled in a bit of parchment. And you can see we have these, it's almost like a little log of pesto, and then I can slice.
Oh, that's great. You can just put it on top of your soup and there you have it.
So I'm going to finish this. We'll get our bowl. It's really, really flavorful. Get 2 ingredients, like really simple.
Yeah, and you could have that, like you said, you could freeze the pesto, put it on so many different things, especially if you like it, right? That's the key. So when you're experiencing any of these taste changes, like you want to experiment and, go back to things. So if something feels okay, then you could always add it to, like Jer said, like a chicken or a fish, to really boost up that flavor. You could even put it on pasta.
Oh, absolutely. Put a couple
that looks great.
Of that pesto on top. And there we go. We have it. There's our white bean miso soup and a little bit of that frozen pea pesto.
Nice.